A new and tense situation is unfolding in the waters of the Caribbean. The United States military has recently conducted 2 deadly strikes against vessels it claims were linked to Venezuelan drug cartels. These actions, ordered by President Donald Trump, have quickly escalated tensions between Washington and Caracas, turning a long-simmering diplomatic standoff into a potential military flashpoint. The latest strike, which occurred just this past Monday, resulted in the deaths of 3 individuals aboard a vessel in international waters. This event follows a similar attack less than 2 weeks prior, raising serious questions about a new phase of American foreign policy in Latin America and what it could mean for regional stability. The core of this developing story lies in the direct and lethal nature of the U.S. response. For years, the U.S. has engaged in counter-narcotics operations, but these recent military strikes represent a significant shift in tactics. Instead of interdiction and arrests, the U.S. has used lethal force, justifying it as a necessary measure to stop the flow of deadly drugs into American communities. The incidents have ignited a firestorm of debate, both at home and abroad. This is not just a story about drug interdiction, it is about the broader geopolitical implications. The Caribbean has now become a stage for a high-stakes standoff, drawing in powerful military assets and the charged rhetoric of world leaders. President Donald Trump has been direct and unapologetic in his reasoning for ordering the military strikes. In his view, these actions are a crucial part of a larger war against what he terms narco-terrorists. He argues that these groups are not merely smuggling drugs, they are actively poisoning American citizens. In a post on his Truth Social platform, the president framed the latest strike as a defensive measure. He stated that the vessel was targeted while confirmed narco-terrorists from Venezuela were in international waters transporting illegal narcotics, a deadly weapon poisoning Americans headed to the U.S. This language deliberately connects drug trafficking directly to a threat against American lives, justifying a military response. The administration's narrative portrays the drug cartels as a clear and present danger to U.S. national security, specifically those with alleged ties to Venezuela. By labeling the narcotics as a deadly weapon, President Trump elevates the issue beyond a criminal justice problem and into the realm of national defense. The focus is on preemption, stopping the drugs and the people transporting them long before they can reach American soil, using the full might of the U.S. military to do so. The recent escalation began with 2 distinct and deadly military operations. The first strike, just under 2 weeks ago, targeted a vessel allegedly connected to the Tren de Aragua. That operation resulted in the deaths of 11 individuals. More recently, on Monday, President Trump announced a second strike. That strike killed 3 people. He said the vessel was carrying illegal narcotics from Venezuela through international waters. Together, these incidents mark a significant and lethal intensification, shifting from seizure and arrest to overt military force. In parallel, the United States has initiated a formidable military buildup in and around the Caribbean. This is not a subtle move. It is a clear and powerful show of force. According to reports, the Pentagon has deployed advanced military hardware to the area. Among the assets moved are at least 10 F-35 advanced stealth jets. These jets have been spotted landing at an airbase in Puerto Rico. 5 of the 5th-generation aircraft landed at the eastern Puerto Rican base of Roosevelt Roads. The naval presence is equally, if not more, imposing. The U.S. Navy has quietly moved at least 8 vessels into the southern Caribbean. USS Sampson, USS Gravely, USS Jason Dunham, USS Lake Erie, a Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser. The fast-attack submarine USS Newport News is also operating in the area. This naval group is augmented by the Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group. It carries the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit, a force of roughly 2,200 Marines ready for a range of operations. This is a significant concentration of military power directed toward a single region. It is a strategic positioning of assets that dramatically raises the stakes and puts immense pressure on the government in Caracas. In the face of escalating United States military actions, Venezuela has projected a message of firm resolve, while at the same time claiming it does not want a war. In a rare interview with CNN, Venezuelan Foreign Minister Ivan Gil stated emphatically, "Venezuela is not seeking a military confrontation with the United States or any other regional actor." This official diplomatic stance is an attempt to de-escalate the rhetoric and position Venezuela as a nation acting in self-defense, not as an aggressor. However, these words are backed by significant military posturing on the ground, indicating that Caracas is taking the American threat very seriously. and preparing for the worst-case scenario. Despite the official denial of seeking conflict, the Venezuelan government has made it clear that it will not be intimidated.
Foreign Minister Gill followed his call for de-escalation with a stark warning. We are denying the possibility of conflict because we are prepared to deter any deployment.
And we have a clear determination to defend our homeland, he said. This statement really underscores Venezuela's strategy to make any potential United States military action so costly that Washington will have to reconsider. In a direct response to the United States military buildup and the increased reward for his capture, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has taken concrete steps to bolster his country's defenses. President Maduro announced on Monday the deployment of 4.5 million militiamen throughout the country. Venezuela's reaction is therefore a calculated mix of diplomacy and military readiness. The deployment of millions of militiamen combined with the government's defiant rhetoric ensures that the region remains on high alert, with both sides now engaged in a dangerous and unpredictable test of wills. As the dust settles from the initial strikes, a wave of serious questions and criticisms has emerged, challenging the legality and wisdom of the Trump administration's actions. A significant point of contention is the lack of clear evidence presented to justify the use of lethal force. According to CNN's reporting, Defense Department officials did not present conclusive evidence that the targets of the first attack were members of Tren de Aragua. Briefers were reportedly unable to confirm the vessel's ultimate destination. One source even mentioned that the boat had turned around at one point, which really casts doubt on whether it posed an imminent threat to the United States. These evidentiary gaps have fueled deep concerns among legal experts and lawmakers. Senator Jack Reed, the ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, has been a vocal critic. There is no evidence, none, that this strike was conducted in self-defense. Under domestic law and international law, the U.S. military simply does not have the authority to use lethal force against a civilian vessel unless acting in self-defense. Without the justification of self-defense, the strikes could be interpreted as unlawful acts of aggression. Human rights organizations have echoed these legal concerns. Groups like Amnesty International have condemned the strikes. Let us be clear, this may be an extrajudicial execution, which is murder. The criticism is compounded by the administration's reluctance to provide detailed information, without access to the intelligence that informed the decision or the specific legal framework that authorized it. Critics are left to question whether the administration is operating within the bounds of the law or creating a dangerous new precedent for unilateral military action on the high seas. The recent events in the Caribbean have pushed a critical debate to the forefront. Is the United States justified in using military force to stop drug trafficking, or do these actions risk igniting a much larger and more dangerous conflict? On one side, proponents of the strikes, including President Trump, present them as necessary national defense. They argue the flow of narcotics from cartels is a direct assault on American society. The devastating toll of overdoses constitutes a national crisis. Military action, they say, is the language narco-terrorists understand. This view prioritizes immediate American safety. Traditional interdiction and law enforcement, they claim, have failed. So, a more aggressive, preemptive strategy is required to neutralize threats before they reach U.S. shores. Critics, however, warn these strikes are a reckless gamble that could spark catastrophic war. They point to legal and ethical questions around extrajudicial killings on the high seas. That, they say, undermines the international rule of law. Blurring crime fighting and warfare sets a dangerous precedent. The perspective stresses the risk of miscalculation. A strike that mistakenly kills Venezuelan military personnel, or a Venezuelan defensive response that damages a U.S. asset, could spiral into full-blown conflict. Critics say a war in Latin America would be disastrous, immense human suffering. So how do we strike the right balance between protecting against immediate threats and preserving long-term peace and stability? The path chosen will have consequences far beyond the waters of the Caribbean.